Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Now in metrology and measurement, today we are going to discuss, we are going to continue our topics on digital measurement, and today we are going to discuss on load cell, dynamometer and vibration measurement. Now in our previous video we have discussed about the strain gauge, which is a nothing but a sensor whose resistance varies with applied force. We have also discussed about different type of strain gauge like bonded strain gauge, unbonded strain gauge, foil type of strain gauge, okay, capacitive strain gauge. Now in this video we are going to discuss another type of gauge, or you can say another type of strain gauge, that is the strain gauge load cell, which actually falls under the section of load cells. We already discussed about the gauge factor or strain factor, which is in case of a strain gauge, which is nothing but the ratio of relative change in electrical resistance to the mechanical strain. So now we are going to move on our current topic, that is the load cell. Now what is load cell? Load cell are elastic device that can be used for measurement of force through the indirect methods through the use of secondary transducer. Now this load cell this load cell utilize an elastic member as the primary transducer and strain gauge as the secondary transducer. When the combination of the strain gauge elastic member is used for weighing, it is actually known as load cell. Basically, when we design the load cell using the strain gauge, we must consider some factors like stiffness of the elastic element, then optimum positioning of the gauge of the element, then provision for the compensation of the temperature. When large loads are to be measured, the direct tensile compressive member may be used, whereas in the case of small load, strain amplification provides bending may be used with advantage. Now if you say how this type of load cell works, basically all electronic weighing scales, they use load cell for the measurement of weights, and what I have said earlier, that these are widely used because of the accuracy in which they can measure the weight. Now load cell can be designed and they are distinct, and this can be distinguished according to the type of output signal generated, like pneumatic, hydraulic or electric, and or you can be it can be also differentiated like how they can detect the weight, like bending, shear or compression or tension. Okay, so now we are going to see what are the type of load cells, and we'll know each and every one. So first of all, what the first load cell what we are going to study, that is the hydraulic load cell. On the right hand side, top side, you can see an hydraulic load cell. Now here the force variable is impressed upon a diaphragm, which deflects and thereby transmits the force to liquid. The liquid medium that contained in a confined space has preloaded pressure of suppose 2 bar. On the application of the force of the liquid pressure pressure increases and equals the force magnitude to divided by the effective area of the diaphragm. The pressure is then transmitted to and read on an accurate pressure gauge calibrated directly on force unit. These cells have been used to measure load up to about you can say 25 meganewton with accuracy up to suppose 0.1% of full scale, and the resolution is 0.02%. Okay, now the next one what we are going to discuss, that is the pneumatic load cell. Now this pneumatic load cell operates on the force balance principle, and it employs a nozzle flapper transducer similar to the conventional relay system. For constantly applied force, the system attains equilibrium at a specific nozzle opening, and corresponding pressure is indicated by the height of mercury column in a manometer. The commercially available load cells can measure loads up to 25 kilonewton with the accuracy of 0.5% of full scale. Last one what we are going to discuss, that is the strain gauge load cell. Now the strain gauge load cell converts weight or force into electrical outputs which are provided by the strain gauge, and this output can be connected to a various measuring instrument for indicating, recording and controlling the way of force. Usually the strain gauge are directly applied to the force developing device, and the device is then calibrated against a strain gauge output. These are the excellent force measuring device, particularly for transient and non-steady forces. and these are used for conjugation with the CRO for measurement of rapidly changing loads. The next one, which is very important, that is the construction of load cells. Now load cell actually are the basic sensor which in which the output is extremely low level of voltage. Okay, when converted to an weighing indicator value, the gradation of often 0.5 mu volt or less. Okay, now this simple strain gauge load cell, it actually consists of a steel cylinder on which there are 4 identical strain gauges mounted. There are these strain gauges having some resistance along the direction of the applied force, and two resistors are along with the direction of the applied load, and other 2 gauges are attached circumferentially to the gauge to the previous gauges. Now all these 4 gauges are connected electrically to the 4th limb of a Wheatstone bridge circuit. When there is no load on the cell, all the 4 gauges having the same resistance, and the terminals, the end terminals are having the same potential. The bridge becomes balanced and output voltage becomes 0. So now we will see how the construction or the working of load cell is being defined. So in this figure you can see that it is actually a simple strain gauge load cell is showing. It actually consists of a basically the simple type of load cell, what I have already said earlier, that it consists of a steel cylinder on which there are 4 identical strain gauges are mounted. Okay, now this strain gauge, if you see this Wheatstone bridge circuit, these are the 4 strain gauge what they are mounted. Now the gauge RG1, this one, and RG4, this one, these are along the direction of applied load, and the gauge RG2 and RG3, they are attached circumferentially to the gauge of RG1 and RG4. Okay, so basically in case of this strain gauge, all of these 4 gauge, they are connected to the 4 limbs, that means A, B, C, D, these 4 limbs of this Wheatstone bridge circuit. Now what I have said, that when there is no load on the cell, all become same. That means when for no load condition on the cell, it becomes same resistance. That means RG1 that is equal to RG2 that is equal to RG3 and equal to RG4. Okay, all become same when there is no load. Obviously this terminal B and D, this B and D terminal, they are having same potential, and then the bridge is balanced and output voltage becomes 0. That means V0 will become 0. For this, output voltage equal to 0. That means we can say V of AB equal to V of AD, that is equal to V by 2. Okay, then from this equation we can say VAB minus V of AD, that is equal to V0, that is equal to 0 for this condition. Okay, for this condition it becomes this. Now on the application of a comprehensive load to the unit, the vertical gauges, that means R1 and RG1 and RG4, that is the vertical gauges. The vertical gauges, these are actually the RG1 and RG4. These 2 gauge actually undergo a compression, that means a negative strain, and therefore there is some sort of decrement in case of resistance. Okay, so when there is a compressive load on to the unit, then the resistance decreases, and the circumferential gauges, so circumferential gauges, that's are RG2, RG3. Okay, when these two gauges undergo tension, that means a positive strain, it leads to the increase in resistance. Now these two strains are not equal. These are related to each other by a factor mu, the Poisson's ratio. So Poisson's ratio, that is mu. Okay, when there is strain, the resistance of the various gauges, they are actually given by Rg1, that is equal to Rg4, that is equal to R dr, and this happens only for compression. Okay, and for Rg2 equal to Rg3, that is equal to R plus dr, that is for tension. Now at terminal B, at B, okay, then VAB, that will be equal to Rg1 by Rg1 plus Rg3 into V. Okay, so if I just elaborate this expression, it will become R minus dr, Rg1, that will be again R minus dr plus Rg3, that is R plus dr. Okay, now for this R plus dr, you know that what I have said, that when it is undergoing the tension, this thing actually related to the Poisson's ratio, this mu. So for this it will be R dr into mu. Okay, so for this thing into V, so for this thing it will be equal to R minus dr 2R minus dr 1 minus mu, this into V. So this is VAB. Okay, similarly, if we need to find out the potential at terminal D, so at D, potential will become V of AD, that is Rg2 plus Rg4. So it will be equal to R plus mu dr by 2R minus dr 1 minus mu, and this into V. So we are just skipping the calculation and it is the final result. Similarly, as this way you can easily calculate and you can easily find out what is the further expansion of this formula from this to this. Okay, so we need to find out the change output voltage. So changed output voltage, that is V0 plus dV0, that will be equal to R minus dr V by 2R minus dr 1 minus mu minus R plus mu dr into V by 2R minus dr 1 minus mu. So actually getting this, if we consider this as 1 and this as 2, combining these two we get this value. Then by soluting this, it will become dr 1 plus mu by 2R, and again if we simplify this, it will become 2 1 plus mu dr by R into V by 4. Okay, now if the output voltage V0 equal to 0 under unloaded condition, then change in output voltage due to the applied load, it will become dV0 equal to 2 1 plus mu dr by r v by 4. Okay, obviously this voltage is a measure of the applied force, and the use of 4 identical strain gauges in each arm of the bridge provides full temperature compensation, and it also increases the sensitivity of the bridge by 2 into 1 plus mu times. Okay. Now the next one, after load cell, now you can see the term that is the dynamometer. Now we have already you can know that this dynamometer, it is actually used for measuring the force or moment of force, that means torque. So to transmit the energy by rotation, it is necessary to apply a turning force. Now in case of shaft, the force is applied tangentially, and in the plane of the traverse cross section, the torque or twisting moment may be calculated by multiplying the force with the radius of the shaft. And you know this, how the torque is being calculated. If the shaft is subjected to opposite turning moment, it is said to be a pure torsion, and it will exhibit a tendency of shearing of at every cross section which is perpendicular to the longitudinal axis. Now the measurement of torque is very much important because of the reasons. Number one is it is considerable interest for its own sake, and it is number two, you can say that it is required to obtain the load information, which is very necessary for stress and deflection analysis. You can say that it is also associated with the determination of mechanical power. Now for this thing, a dynamometer or rope dynamometer is actually used. So dynamometer, if you say in short for dyno, it is a device for measuring torque, moment of force or power. For example, if the power is produced by an engine or motor or other rotating prime mover, it can be calculated by simultaneously measuring the torque and RPM. This dynamometer can be used to determine the torque and power required to operate a drive machine such as pump. Okay, now a dynamometer is designed to be driven is called the absorption or passive dynamometer, and a dynamometer that can either drive or absorb is called universal or active dynamometer. Now in case of this dynamometer, the dynamometer is an absorbing dynamometer acts as a load which is driven by the prime mover, which is under test, and the dynamometer must be able to operate at any speed and load to any level of torque at the test requires. The dynamometer have a braking torque regulator where the power absorption unit is configured to provide a set braking torque load, while the prime mover is configured to operate at whatever throttling opening and the fuel delivery rate or any other variable is desired to test. If the dynamometer had a speed regulator, it also provides a variable amount of braking force that is necessary to cause the prime mover to operate as a desired test speed or RPM. Now power is calculated based on the rotational speed into torque into constant, a constant term, which is with the constant varying of the output unit desired and input unit being used. A motoring dynamometer acts as a motor that drives the equipment under test. It must be able to drive the equipment at any speed and develop a level of torque that the test requires. Basically AC or DC motors, they are used to drive the equipment or load device. In case of most dynamometer, the power is not measured directly, but it can be calculated from torque, angular velocity, the values of force and the inner velocity. Now it can be defined as the P equal to tau into omega, where P is the power, tau is the torque and omega is the angular velocity. It can also be defined as P equal to F into small v, where F is the force and V is the linear velocity. Now you know that it can be differentiated for imperial units at division by conservation of it can be divided by conservation constant, which may be required depending on the units of measure which is being used. That is P suffix HP in case of horsepower, where which is actually defined as the tau suffix pound feet in case of pound feet, and omega in form of rpm by 5252. Okay. Now in case of metric unit, it can be considered as again tau into omega. So basically dynamometer, you can say that in case of classification as absorption, motoring or universal, as I have already said, dynamometer can be also classified in different ways. Okay, like in case of engine dynamometer, which is coupled directly to an engine, then a dynamometer which can measure torque and power delivered to the powertrain or vehicle directly from the drive wheel or wheels without removing the engine from the frame is known as chassis dynamometer. Dynamometer can be classified in the type of absorption unit or absorber driver which are used, and some unit they are capable of absorption only can be combined with the motor to construct an absorber or driver or universal dynamometer. Now the next one, what we are going to discuss, that is the measurement of vibration. Now vibration is a complex measurement containing many different parameters. Different measurement technologies have advantages and disadvantages depending on how these are being measured and what are the type of the measurements. Okay, now in case of vibration measurement, vibration is nothing but a time based periodic or cyclic displacement. Okay, displacement of an object around a center specific position. Now in case of vibration measurement, there are you can know that some factors are available which are very much have a complex relationship with the magnitude and the rate of vibration, like the object's own natural frequencies and stiffness. Then you can say that the amplitude and the frequencies of external energy source including the vibration, then the coupling mechanism between the vibration energy source and the object of interest. Vibration measurement, when the action of his single event from a transient with the motion generally decaying or damping out before further action takes place, it may be the effect to a shock. Now measurement of vibration may be made with a transducer sensitive to amplitude, that means displacement, velocity or acceleration. The output of this transducer after necessary signal conditioning is fed to the display unit, where indicating the original measurement variable or another variable is derived from its either through integration or differentiation. Now this vibration measurement is a complex because of its many components like displacement, velocity, acceleration, frequencies. Also each of the components can be measured in different ways like peak to peak, peak average, RMS. What you know that this type of method we have already studied in the case of the surface roughness. Okay, now basically each of these can be measured in the time domain or frequency domain or just a single number of total vibration. Now this vibration measurement sometimes uses the indirect measurement of some other value, and the final measurement goal is determining the approach of the measuring vibration. Often condition monitoring is also available, that means it can also monitor the wear, fatigue and failure of different type of equipment. Now in case of vibration measurement, fifth vibration occurs when the object structure is displaced or impacted and then allowed to oscillate naturally. For example, if you strike a tuning fork, it rings and eventually dies down. Natural frequency often refers to the frequency at which the structure wants to oscillate after the impact or displacement. Now this resonance is the tendency for a system to oscillate more violently at some frequencies than other, and the forced vibration at near or object natural frequency cause the energy inside the structure to build. In case of vibration measurement, basically this type of measurement actually measured using a cerometric piezoelectric sensor or accelerometer. An accelerometer is a sensor that measures the dynamic acceleration of a physical device as voltage. Accelerometers are fully contact transducers typically mounted directly on the high frequency element such as rolling element bearing, gearbox or spinning blades. These versatile sensors can also be in shock of measurement and slower low frequency or vibration measurements. The benefit of this accelerometer includes linearity over wide frequency range and large dynamic range. Another sensor you can use to measure the vibration is the proximity probe. Unlike this accelerometer which measured acceleration to determine the vibration, these proximity probes are non-conductive transducers that measure distance to a target. These sensors are almost exclusively used in rotating machinery to measure the vibration of a shaft. Now, basic harmful effects for vibration, if you say that excessive wear of a machine components, then machine parts are subjected to excessive stress. Machine components may fail due to fatigue, reduction of useful life of building, then workers and other human beings around the machines. So there are different harmful effects of vibrations is available, and that's why this type of vibrating measuring instruments are being used. Basically, the vibration measurement may be classified in different section, different way, like the method based on sensory perception, like vibrating wedge, then mechanical method in case of dial type of micrometer, then electrical method and optical method. There are frequency meters, phase indicator, vibrometers are also used apart from this type of equipments. Okay, so basically this vibrometer or vibrations measurement is a very important part in nowadays in case of any structural analysis. So coming to the short summary of this video, so load cell is nothing but a type of transducer, and there are different type of load cell available like hydraulic, pneumatic and strain gauge. Then in case of torque measurement we use the dynamometer or dyno in short, which actually measures the torque by measuring the force or moment of force. Okay, and another one is the vibration measurement, which is commonly used, which is commonly measured by the accelerometer, or you can say the proximity probe. So these are the basic different type of measurement which are being measured through different type of digital measuring instrument. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please share my video and also subscribe my channel for getting more update. Thank you.